Please do not stand up, deal.
You're right, known as the Wrigley Building, built in 1921. Now you notice how this building is decked out in a beautiful gum. Your teeth will be bright white clean, just like the building. You see, it was a master in advertising. Now, 100 years later from the Wrigley Building, we have another building named after another business person coming in as a city within a city. A city within a city. A what? Now today, you can go to any major city in the world and go known as Marina City. Now it is dubbed a city within a city for a reason. Like I said, today you can go to any major city in the world, go to the corner store, pick up groceries, go to the gym, cafe, laundromat, all that inner city lifestyle jazz. Back in the 1950s and 60s, that wasn't even a concept yet. On your left, you're going to see a building with the hashtag patterns on it. That's going to be the Leo Burnett Building, built in 1989. Although his work is not presented on the river influence. Now, when you think of architectural styles, think of it as fashion. You can lots of ventilation vents. That's because there's so much railroad action happening, they couldn't build a solid base. So what they did was they bent the foundation into an arch. It's very similar when you go camping to a music festival, such as Bonnaroo or Lunch Forest. You know, you have to set up your tent to create that arch to hold your structure. That's exactly what's happening here. So imagine this giant tent pole around the bend up north. You'll eventually see a pinkish building on your left. That's going to be the Fulton House, built in 1898. This is going to be indeed the oldest building on the Chicago River. Now back then, all those doors, windows, and decks and patios did not exist. It was just pure solid concrete wall. And that's because it was once forward 100 years later into the 1980s. Some of these buildings that were built like tanks like this were being bulldozed to the postmodern world, such as malls and movie theaters. And if you're like me from Chicago in the 80s, you know that's all we did. We hung out at malls and movie theaters, especially after watching the hit musical Beat Street. We'll be out there breakdancing trying to be like Crazy Legs. I'll leave it to an architect in Illinois named Harry Weiss. He was a very interesting character, but he loved using architecture to make the world a better place. So when it came time to save these buildings and repurpose them, him and his crew built a 4 feet of concrete wall to add in all the doors, windows, decks, and patios. All they discovered it was made of cork and horsehair, a method of insulation back in the day. But again, maybe the Chicagoans started a whole new trend, because when you see buildings like this on your left, you see music venues, breweries, clubs. That all started here in the 80s when we were saving our buildings. Now on your right, take a note of this bridge with that block of concrete. We'll talk about this in a minute, but just a block of concrete and how those steel structures to go up and down. Now, do we have any first timers in Chicago? Any first timers? Okay. Good. Yeah, make it all about you. It's happy Scorpio season for all y'all. If you ever meet a Chicago, the only ones that were set up shop here. And that's because before, not even indigenous were spent out here. And that's before any of this city ever existed. It was all one swamp and marshy. And in the summertime, all the summer rain would flood the vegetation, creating a foul and headed further west into rural America, leaving all this to become an industrial graveyard site. Now the landlord, the railroad companies, they weren't going to move out. They knew that it was still prime real estate. So they allowed the architects to build around and above the train tracks as long as they don't interrupt the train schedule. But due to the limitation of technology, now because of this design, it is prone to the winds knocking it over. Has anyone ever played the game Jenga? You know when you take the bottom blocks out? That's exactly what's happening to the Martini building. So North was no longer just a box image, but now it's a sculpture's design as it's curving and bending with the river. And that green you see up ahead is no longer a really simple glitter of blankets and windows. Instead, we're going to express ourselves. And in this situation, we're going to express the 72. They just put a big old block of concrete to block the view of the river and instead use it for the elevators. In 2016, new owners are like, why is it from here all the way to the Alpenstar Michigan Avenue to the southern tip of Lincoln Park Zoo? Now, it only died out in the early morning rain of October 10th of 1871. The aftermath, 17,000 structures burnt down, 100,000 victims were left homeless, and sadly, 300 people died in the fire. Immediately the next day, as the ashes were still hot, Chicagoans were stuck with the question, where do we go from here? North, west, or south? Skyscraper. You know that feeling you get when you're on a road trip when you see mountains in the horizon and your roof shark up begins to light up with joy? That's how the world felt when they witnessed the first skyscraper. We just knew then and there that we were building the modern world with the second city. So from here on out, wherever you go in the world, when you see these tall buildings that identify themselves as skyscrapers, you now know where they come from. Here in Chicago. Now during this whole rebuild phase, the World's Fair Committee, think of the FIFA when they're planning the World Cup. Think of that magnitude. But now you got the World's Fair. They showcase cultures, inventions, and ideas. And the Chicago hot dog. Now to me, the Chicago hot dog is such a great representation of what the city's all about. It's combining cultures, ideas, and diversity into one peaceful meal. Now what makes our Chicago hot dog so unique and different from all the other hot dogs in the world is the rule of never putting ketchup on a hot dog. Y'all know about that? We don't put ketchup on our hot dog. And there's a reason for this. You see, back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, Chicago was the hog butcher capital of the world. And this was causing a problem. And these business owners had to do something. They had to feed their employees, not because they cared about them, but because it was slowing down production. So what they did how the hot dogs ago, they don't understand cola over 21 and up, get a PBR, because the thing is to put living here, go out either if you're fortunate to the lake front by the rocks, or even better, hang out here by the Riverwalk and just vibe out to the golden hour. Especially when the sun is setting behind the skyscrapers, creating that oasis orange glow. And the moon, she's almost full and its stars begin to twinkle over the middle of the sky. But if the skyscrapers begin to wake up with city bright lights, you'll then understand what I wanted to do for the city. We wanted to put a Paris on the prairie. We truly believe that the city can become beautiful, then beautiful people will emerge, and beautiful things can then happen. Truly give yourself that opportunity to experience some magic in Chicago. Pick up a bottle of wine, cheese, and crackers, and go to Millennium Park and check out a free show. On a Wednesday or Saturday, stand in front of Buckingham Fountain and see the waters change at night as the skyline wake up with the fireworks opening the pier. And if you're wild like me, definitely catch a show at Grand Park for the annual music festival known as Lollapalooza. This year was my 15th anniversary, my Pizzapalooza, and I was so thankful to be there. I discovered new music such as Doechii, Rufus Du Sol, and I finally saw my childhood band Korn. Rock and roll is still alive, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll see why this is such a world-class city and constantly winning Best Place to Live. Finally, in 2016, the city fully opened up this beautiful Riverwalk that's here all year long, free, and out here on the right, you're going to see a box full of projectors, and they shine light onto merchandise line to give you the world's free largest art show called Art on the Mart. Art on the Mart. Art on the... I'm just saying it a few more times so you don't forget what I said. But for houses look like on the inside, underneath Michigan Avenue is the McCormick Bridge Museum. So it's open all year long from Monday to Thursday, and you get to enter these bridge houses and check out the mechanism of the Triennial Bascule system, a system that's way over 120 years old. Now, we are in the bridge lifting season. I highly encourage you all to Google that, to enter the bridge house and see the mechanism of the Triennial move. It is quite the spectacle. I mean, you think waiting for the nice iPhone or something? Wait till you see our bridges go up and down. And the reason why I look at the beautiful Chinese Greek temple is because they're taking concepts of the old, ancient Rome and Greece in its golden era, and combining it with modernism, such as glass and steel. Now, this unique blend is simply known as neoclassical. And as a friendly reminder, out of courtesy to passengers, that we can kindly stay seated. Once again, out of courtesy reminder, we can all kindly stay seated. Now, next door to the Chinese Greek temple on your left, we're going to see a beautiful building with a Google 55 in it. And right, you're about to see a beautiful tall green terracotta with actual 24-karat gold on top. That's going to be the Carbide and Carbine building, built in 1930. Before any of these buildings existed, there was a perfect bird's eye view to the post office. And you know which annoying offices were there? The U.S. Bureau of Prohibition. So imagine how those officers were doing when they were drinking the morning coffee and they had to look at this giant bottle of champagne. Now, for a building on Michigan Avenue, you take it to the top and you order yourself a nice $30 glass of champagne. And if you don't like that, that's art built in 1972. Now, this is Mies van der Rohe's last masterpiece before he left the planet. Here you can truly understand what he meant about less is more, glass and steel. You see, Mies really did believe in building good, meaningful buildings that can help connect you to the infinite possibilities and none of the distractions. Now,
주차
as we keep
빌딩이에요?
talking about the Beau Art, the World's
위에는
Fair, the
집이고.
White City,
아,
if you
그래?
really wanted to
저기,
know what the vibe
저기는
is all
집이고,
about, just
집이고,
imagine
여기는
entering a Intercontinental Hotel. You're going to see a dome or a ball. It's not a dome or a ball. When you see it, tell me what it is. It would be such an honor to introduce you to the works of Jeannie Kane from Studio Kane. She's a local architect here in Chicago, and she's using influence not only here, but the rest of the world. And that's because of the lake. And he thought maybe if we could dig a ditch through that line and make the human-made river get deeper, maybe we can use gravity and let it go out into the ocean. And after 8 years and 20 contaminating our drinking water. But unfortunately, the critics don't have enough evidence. And you know, Chicago being Chicago when it comes to politics and charm, they pretty much told the judge straight up, like, oh, like, people are dying in the mass, you know what I'm saying? Like, the solution to pollution is dilution. Black Convention Tower, the summer resembles a giant glass. Well, that's going to be Lake Point Tower in condominium, built in 1968. Now, you'll notice I was the only building eastmost of Lakeshore Drive. And there's a reason for that. Have you ever gone to a beautiful beach resort vacation? In the 1930s, when the OG commissioners made Chicago to a city, they were like, oh, there's a pretty lakefront. It should be free and clear of obstructions and buildings and open to the people of Chicago and its visitors. Now that became the golden rule, but it was never the law. So when Lake Point Tower is rising, Chicago is at the Union Station with 2 towers at there and back. Go ahead and start gathering your belongings, start using the bathrooms if you must, close out any tabs you have. Take all the photos you want right now. I'm going to leave you a couple of seconds and minutes, but when I come back on the microphone, I will kindly ask everybody to stay seated, and that's because when we go back to that bridge, I want everybody to capture the most beautiful video on their phone. But in order for everyone to capture it, we will continue. But in order for everyone to capture this moment, right now I'm going to ask everybody to start returning back to the seats, but don't put your phones away, because when we go to that bridge, you're going to capture the most coolest video on your phone. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brian. I'm over 50 years now. Now, I love this city. I love it so much that I ride my bicycle all year long, even in the wintertime. I'm one of those winter bikers. Now, the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field during the season. And when I'm not working with the Cubs, I'm working with the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. And at nighttime, I DJ. I spin on Tube Techniques 1200 distributing all vinyl house music. This is part of my Chicago DNA. Now, I love this city so much that I'm indeed the very first of my whole entire family to ever receive a scholarship and graduate from a college. This is the one you're going to hashtag as a shoreline sightseeing. As a friendly reminder, have those flash off. I greatly appreciate it. Now, the river has seen it all. It's future, past, present, all in one steady stream. And even though it's flowing backwards, it's always progressing forward with ideas. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, so you go to your food pharmacy to get your medicine, right? The thing is, because it's fermented, well, and they tell them, hey, are you selling alcohol? And Carl tells them, like, nah, this ain't alcohol, this is medicine. You don't believe me? You try it. They challenge the officer. You see it? Just because when the boat is docking or parking, it's going to create a little movement to give you some perspective. Imagine walking into the side.
계단으로 올라가는 거 아니야?
우리 왔을 때랑 다른데 우린 여기 가운데
이거 약간 저 구름이 너무 예쁘게 나온다. 아, 근데 생각해보는데 내가 먹으면 다시 그게 또 다시 나올 거 아니야. 그치, 내가 내 걸 먹는 좀 그치. 아, 근데 아깝잖아. 내가 모유가 원래 엄청 안 나와. 저기 가서 저기에 비치게 찍자. 아까 전에 내가 찾았을 때 나온 핫도그 저기 집. 응.